If you have ever had a really hard time letting go of one of your own past mistakes, whether it was something you said or something you did, this video is for you. Hey there, Amy Kay here. I work with a lot of type A, overachiever, go-getters, really, some would say perfectionists in their personality. I'm just gonna say they strive for levels of excellence. And one of the common themes is a lack of self-forgiveness for either something they did or something they said, whether they were 9, 19, 29, or 49, they have a hard time letting go. It's like a dog with a bone. So if you've ever experienced that, if you've ever said or done something that you're like, duh, and yet you find yourself replaying it and replaying it and replaying it, I've got a magical conversation for you. So the first thing to understand is that you don't actually trust yourself. You are caught in the loop of guilt and shame. What does that mean? Guilt for having hurt somebody else, guilt for having trespassed against another, and that goes against your core values. And then the shame of, this isn't who I am. I can't believe I acted that way. I don't want to be that person. That combo in a loop keeps you stuck until you have the magical conversation of, would I do that again? And the answer is no. And then you ask yourself, well, what would I say or do now that's more mature, that is a higher level of emotional intelligence, that's simply more thoughtful or more heart-led instead of ego-triggered? That's a doozy. What would I do today that is more heart-led instead of ego-triggered? And then you tell yourself that. Well, then I'm not that person. I am now a person who would fill in the blank. I am now a person who would respond thoughtfully. I'm a person who would say this. I'm a person who would do that. And when you start to change the internal narrative about who you are today, it makes it easier to let go of who you used to be. And so this is not a one and done, but this is a magical conversation where you start to change the wiring of your brain, the narrative. And then to just solidify it more somatically in the body, you can do what I call a bilateral brain hug. So you take your hands and you put them on opposite shoulders, and you can then say, I am, and then fill in the blank. I am now a more patient person, or I am a more loving person, or I am a more thoughtful person, or I am a more kind person today. And you just remind yourself of that. What most of us do is we stay in the loop of guilt and shame because our body and our brain are not in congruence in trusting us to act better going forward. So as soon as we change the conversation to say, no, I would act differently. I would act differently today. And we believe ourselves by having that internal conversation enough, we actually rewire our brain and our body and our belief system so that we can start letting go of the narrative. It's a hard conversation sometimes, and it's also a magical one. From my heart to yours. Hugs.